Most people spend 40 years working a salary and retire with anxiety instead of options. And the reason has nothing to do with how much they earned. Wealth building follows a pattern that nobody explains to salaried workers. The early years feel brutal because you're doing almost all the work yourself. Then you cross a threshold and compounding takes over. The math shifts so dramatically in your favor that patience becomes your only real job. Most people never reach this turning point. Not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because nobody told them this inflection point is the entire game. That's what this talk will give you, the actual arithmetic of how ordinary salaries become seven figures, and the mental errors that guarantee you'll never get there. Here's what the crowd gets backwards. They believe wealth comes from brilliant moves, insider knowledge, or complicated strategies that require a finance degree. The truth works in reverse. Remarkable long-term advantage comes to people who focus on being consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent, not brilliance. Consistency in avoiding stupidity. The person who understands this walks through life with an almost unfair advantage, making calm decisions while everyone else chases the next hot tip. The cost of ignoring this runs high. 40 years of selling your time, then arriving at 65 with nothing but a pension if luck holds out, and a growing sense of panic about outliving whatever money remains. The solution that separates you from 90% of salaried workers fits in 5 words, and once you understand it, building wealth becomes a matter of execution rather than mystery. You must sell your time twice. Working a job means selling your time once to your employer, and when they pay you, that hour disappears forever. Most people stop right there. Time sells, a check arrives, the check vanishes, and this cycle repeats for 4 decades. The wealthy figured out something different. That same hour can sell twice. Your employer gets your labor, yes, your best thinking, your best hour of each day that belongs to you. That hour, whether it arrives early morning or late evening, becomes when you study, when you learn, when your earnings flow into assets that grow while you sleep. Selling time once keeps a person poor. Selling time twice builds wealth. Nothing about this gets complicated. What it requires is a decision that most people refuse to make and a series of errors they need to stop committing. Those errors come next. The people around you carry weight that shapes your financial future, and none of them sit neutral in this equation. Sit with that statement for a moment. Your friendships, your regular companions, the people whose calls you actually answer, all of them actively shape where your money ends up, whether awareness of this reaches you or not. Your friends aren't bad people, and that's not the point here. Something more precise deserves your attention. When your behavior starts changing in ways that move you toward wealth, and your peer group responds with mockery or indifference or subtle discouragement, a decision lands in your lap. The decision sounds like this: acquire worldly wisdom and adjust your behavior accordingly. And if your new behavior creates a little temporary unpopularity with your peer group, then to hell with them. Harsh words carry harsh truth, and the truth here works out to arithmetic. Spending your evenings and weekends with people who show no interest in financial improvement creates a predictable outcome. When those people view your attempts at learning as pretentious, when they make you feel embarrassed for reading books about business or investing, you will eventually stop. Willpower doesn't fail you in this situation. Human beings function as social creatures, and the psychological cost of standing as the odd one out weighs enormous. The safest way to get what you want runs through deserving what you want. That golden rule of wealth building asks you to deliver to the world what you would buy if you stood on the other end. Becoming the person who deserves wealth cannot happen when the people around you punish every attempt. A practical test can reveal your situation. Think about the last 5 conversations with close friends and count how many included any discussion of skills you're developing, money you're saving, books you're reading, or goals you're pursuing. When the answer comes back 0 or close to it, you don't face a money problem. You face an environment problem. Abandoning lifelong friendships isn't the prescription here. Honesty about which relationships support your growth and which ones quietly suffocate it, that's what this demands. The person who mocks your ambition isn't acting friendly. They're acting threatened, and their discomfort becomes your ceiling the moment you allow it. Dead people have a lot to teach you. Morbid as that sounds, the practical value runs deep. The greatest minds in history, the ones who built fortunes, who understood human nature, who mastered accumulating wealth, They wrote everything down, every mistake they made, every principle they discovered, every shortcut they found sits in libraries and bookstores, often priced below the cost of a lunch. What separates people who build wealth from people who don't comes down to this observation gathered over decades of watching who succeeds and who fails. No wise person over a broad subject matter area avoided reading all the time. None. Zero. That's not exaggeration, that's pattern recognition. Specificity matters when discussing what kind of reading counts. Scrolling news headlines doesn't qualify. Skimming social media posts misses the mark entirely. Deep, focused study of people who already achieved what you want to achieve. That's the reading that moves the needle. The method runs simple. Identify 10 people who succeeded in your chosen field. Not celebrities, not people famous for being famous, but people who built real lasting wealth through skills and discipline. Study them obsessively. Read their biographies. Find their interviews. Understand not just what they did, but why they did it and what they avoided. Mastering the best that other people figured out represents the discipline worth pursuing. Sitting down and trying to dream it all up yourself misses the point entirely. Nobody carries that much intelligence. That last sentence carries real weight. Nobody possesses the intelligence to figure everything out from scratch. The person who tries to reinvent every wheel spends their entire life reinventing wheels. The person who studies how others built their wheels can spend their life building something new on that foundation. Benjamin Franklin stands as probably the best example in American history of what gets called a learning machine. Starting with nothing, he became wealthy and influential and essential to founding a nation. Reading constantly drove this transformation. Studying the best thinking available filled his days. Applying what he learned moved him forward. Adjusting when he turned out wrong kept him progressing. You have access to more information than Franklin could have dreamed existed. Whether you'll use it remains the only question worth asking. Most people stay stuck, and here's why that happens. Success didn't come through intelligence in my experience. Success came through having a long attention span. Read that again. A long attention span. In an age of 15-second videos and constant notifications, the ability to focus deeply on one thing for an extended period has become rare. Rare things carry value. Your commute isn't dead time, it's learning time. Your lunch break isn't just for eating, it's for reading. Your evenings aren't meant for passive consumption. They're meant for active development. Direct honesty serves you better here. Every hour spent watching content that doesn't improve your skills or knowledge amounts to an hour donated to staying exactly where you are. That's not judgment. That's math. Spending each day trying to be a little wiser than when you woke up, discharging your duties faithfully and well, that's how you systematically get ahead. Though not necessarily in fast spurts. Building discipline by preparing for fast spurts matters regardless. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day. Practice looks like this. The average American watches several hours of television daily. Conservative estimates put it at 2 hours. That adds up to 14 hours per week, 60 hours per month, 720 hours per year. 720 hours holds remarkable potential for learning. Becoming proficient in a new skill fits in that time. Reading 50 books fits. Taking multiple courses fits. Mastering the fundamentals of investing, of persuasion, of your industry, all of it fits. Developing expertise that makes you genuinely valuable in the marketplace, that fits too. Shows you won't remember next month also fit in that time. The choice belongs to you. Willpower isn't what this comes down to. Understanding opportunity cost, what you give up when you choose one thing over another, that's what this comes down to. Every hour carries a cost. Whether you're paying that cost for something that compounds or something that evaporates determines where you end up. Learning machines don't find time. Learning machines make time by cutting what doesn't compound. Most people carry the investment equation backwards in their heads. Their thinking goes like this. Once money arrives, investing in learning begins. Reality works the opposite direction. Once investing in learning begins, money arrives. That distinction has kept more people poor than any market crash or economic downturn. The knowledge gap, that space between what you know and what you need to know, stands as the actual barrier to wealth. Not your salary, not your starting point, your knowledge gap. Clarity about what investing in yourself means serves you here. Spending money you don't have on programs promising overnight transformation isn't the point. Strategic allocation of resources toward genuine skill development, that's the point. A framework helps. Before you feel ready, start learning anyway. The feeling of being ready functions as a trap. Your brain protecting you from discomfort creates that feeling. Growth happens inside discomfort. Mental models need to live in your head, and your experience, both vicarious and direct, needs to array itself on this latticework of models. Practical application looks like this. Understanding multiple disciplines, not just your narrow specialty, separates the winners from everyone else. The person who understands only accounting loses to the person who understands accounting and psychology. The person who understands only their job loses to the person who understands their job and basic economics and human behavior and probability. Reading across fields matters for this reason. Studying biographies of people from different eras and industries matters for this reason. Building a latticework, a structure of knowledge where new information finds somewhere to attach, that's what this achieves. Elementary worldly wisdom starts with one rule. Knowing anything real doesn't happen when you just remember isolated facts and try to bang them back. When facts don't hang together on a latticework of theory, they don't exist in a usable form. Isolated facts amount to trivia. Connected facts amount to wisdom. Wisdom applied consistently becomes wealth. One skill multiplies every other skill you possess. Regardless of your profession, regardless of your industry, regardless of what you think your actual job involves, this skill determines how far you go. Persuasion. Something about human interaction deserves your understanding. Every meaningful transaction in your career involves influencing someone else. Convincing a boss to promote you requires it. Convincing a client to hire you requires it. Convincing a colleague to support your project requires it. Convincing yourself to keep going when things turn hard requires it too. Robert Cialdini wrote about the principles of influence, covering reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. Manipulation tactics they are not. Descriptions of how human beings actually make decisions is exactly what they are. Navigating your career blindfolded is what happens when these principles remain unknown to you. A practical example of reciprocity shows how this works. Delivering value first, before asking for anything in return, creates a psychological pull. The person receiving that value feels an obligation, often unconsciously, to reciprocate. This explains why the best networkers don't walk into rooms asking what they can get. They walk in asking what they can give. And here's where most people fail at selling. They haven't sold themselves first. The first sale you make every day goes to yourself, believing that what you offer, your skills, your work, your contribution, carries genuine value isn't optional, not in an arrogant way, in an accurate way. When this internal sale fails, external sales certainly won't succeed. The person who mumbles about their qualifications in a job interview isn't displaying humility. They're displaying confusion, and confusion sits opposite to persuasive. Knowing what you don't know proves more useful than brilliance. Persuasion follows this same pattern. Know exactly what value you provide. Know exactly who benefits from that value. Know exactly how to articulate it in terms the other person cares about. This skill compounds over time. Every improvement in your ability to communicate value makes everything else you do more effective. Proximity matters more than most people admit to themselves. Accelerating your wealth building requires being in rooms where successful people gather. They won't hand you money, and that's not the point. Exposure to different thinking changes how you think. That's the point. The uncomfortable truth runs like this. Most people attend events passive. They show up, they sit, they listen, they leave. Speaking to anyone never happens. Following up never happens. A room full of potential connections gets treated like a movie watched from the back row. That approach wastes everything. The highest form that civilization can reach is a seamless web of deserved trust. That word, deserved, carries all the weight. Trust doesn't arrive automatically. Earning it requires repeated interactions where you demonstrate reliability and competence and genuine interest in others' success. Entering a room of successful people assigns you 2 jobs. First, research who's there before you arrive, knowing who you want to meet and why. Second, show up with something to offer, whether that's an insight, a connection, or a genuine question that shows you've done your homework. Something practical helps here. Before any professional event, identify 3 people you want to meet. Learn about their work. Prepare 1 thoughtful question for each. After the event, follow up within 48 hours with something useful, an article relevant to what you discussed, an introduction to someone who could help them, or simply a specific thank you that references your conversation. Most people won't do any of that, and that's exactly why most people don't build valuable networks. Reputation and integrity stand as your most valuable assets, and a heartbeat is all it takes to lose them. Networking follows this same rule. Every interaction offers a chance to build reputation or destroy it. The person who shows up unprepared, who takes without giving, who follows up with nothing but asks, that person burns reputation with every contact. The person who consistently creates value for others builds something that compounds. Arithmetic that most people avoid out of fear is about to become clear. $1 million as your goal means working backwards reveals the path. $1 million divided by 10 years equals $100,000 per year. Divided by 30 years drops that number to approximately $33,000 per year. Now that $33,000 needs examination, how does it accumulate? Compounding becomes your partner at this stage. The first $100,000 feels brutal. You do almost all the work. The money you've saved barely generates anything meaningful. Most people quit right here because the math feels impossible when they run it. Watch what happens after that first $100,000 lands in your accounts. Your money starts contributing alongside you. At reasonable returns, that $100,000 might generate $8,000 to $10,000 per year. That's money working while you sleep, while you eat, while you sit at your job working for your employer. The first rule of compounding says never interrupt it unnecessarily. Most people interrupt it constantly. They save, then spend. Save, then spend. Their growing pile of money gets treated like a vacation fund instead of a machine that needs time to build momentum. A principle that sounds simple but changes everything works like this. Do the math backwards from where you want to be, then forward from where you are until they meet. 10 years from now, where do you want to stand and what's the number? What has to happen each year to get there? What has to happen each month, each week? Somebody else is always going to get richer faster than you. That's not a tragedy. Let that sink in fully. Someone else's speed holds no relevance to your trajectory. The only comparison that matters puts you today against you yesterday. The big money doesn't sit in the buying and the selling. The big money sits in the waiting. The person who gets rich on a salary automates their savings, invests consistently, and then waits. Not for months, for decades. Boring describes this perfectly. Unglamorous fits too. And that's exactly why it works. A thinking tool that prevents catastrophic mistakes needs your attention now. Invert. Always invert. Turn a situation or problem upside down. Look at it backward. Most people ask how to get rich. The wiser question asks, what would guarantee staying poor? The list runs like this. Spending everything you earn guarantees poverty. Carrying high-interest debt guarantees poverty. Avoiding all learning after formal education ends guarantees poverty. Surrounding yourself with people who have no ambition guarantees poverty. Making decisions based on emotion instead of arithmetic guarantees poverty. Trying to get rich fast guarantees poverty. The desire to get rich fast carries serious danger, and this point deserves emphasis. Every get-rich-quick scheme, every speculative frenzy, every once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that requires fast action, none of these represent paths to wealth. They represent paths to transferring your wealth to someone else. 3 things ruin people: drugs, liquor, and leverage. Leverage means debt, used to amplify gains. And the problem is that it amplifies losses just as effectively. The person who uses leverage to speed up wealth building often discovers they've sped up wealth destruction instead. All anyone really needs to know is where they're going to die, so they'll never go there. Inversion applied to life decisions works exactly like that. Figure out what would destroy your financial future, then systematically avoid those things. Talking about what to avoid lacks glamour. People want to hear about brilliant moves, secret strategies, and insider knowledge. Real wealth gets built far more by avoiding stupidity than by doing brilliant things. Living an adequate life without making mistakes isn't possible. The trick requires making sure none of them turn fatal. A mistake that costs you 10% of your savings leaves you standing. A mistake that costs you everything does not. The wealthy don't just play offense. They play defense with paranoid intensity. Your brain sabotages your wealth, and understanding why this happens matters. Delayed gratification doesn't come naturally to human beings. Evolution built us in environments where immediate consumption made sense because food spoiled, danger lurked constantly, and the future held too much uncertainty. Saving for later seemed pointless when later might never arrive. That wiring, useful for survival on the savannah, becomes catastrophic for building wealth in modern society. Greed doesn't drive the world, envy does. Envy stands as the most destructive force in personal finance. You had a plan, you saved money, progress showed up, and then you saw your neighbor's new car, your colleague's vacation photos, your brother-in-law's house. Suddenly your plan felt inadequate, your progress felt slow, your discipline felt like deprivation instead of investment. Envy qualifies as a really stupid sin because it's the only one where fun never shows up. Pain arrives in abundance and fun stays home. Why would anyone want to board that trolley? The antidote works like this. Compare yourself only to your previous self, not to others. To yourself 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Wiser now, wealthier now, more skilled now. If the answer comes back, yes, you're winning. Honesty has to enter this comparison, and here's where the push comes. Keeping a clear picture of where you stand financially means seeing where you actually are, not where you wish you stood. Look at your bank account, look at your debts, look at your net worth, compare that to where you want to be. That gap between current reality and potential doesn't justify despair. It functions as fuel. The person who pretends they're doing better than reality shows will never generate the urgency to change. The person who sees the gap clearly, who feels it daily, who lets that awareness drive action, that person changes. Something that ties everything together deserves your attention before this ends. Getting rich was never the intention. Getting independent was always the goal. Independence, not Ferraris, not mansions, not status symbols that impress people you don't even like. Building wealth on a salary has one real purpose, and that purpose is reaching a point where doing anything you don't want to do becomes optional, where your choices belong to you, where your time becomes yours. The path runs clear. Sell your time twice, once to your employer and once to yourself. Cut the people who punish your growth. Study obsessively from those who've succeeded. Guard your hours like they're worth exactly what they could become. Invest in knowledge before you feel ready. Get in rooms where successful people gather. Learn to articulate your value persuasively. Do the math backwards until the numbers make sense. Avoid the stupid mistakes that guarantee poverty. Use the gap between where you are and where you want to be as fuel. Brilliance isn't what any of this requires. Consistency is what all of it requires. Waiting helps you as an investor, and a lot of people just can't stand to wait. Building wealth generally follows this same pattern. The strategies aren't secret. The math isn't complex. The principles have lived in writing for centuries. What's rare is the person who will actually do these things for 20 or 30 years without stopping. Spending each day trying to be a little wiser than when you woke up, discharging your duties faithfully and well. That's how you systematically get ahead, though not necessarily in fast spurts. Building discipline by preparing for fast spurts matters regardless. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day. That's the speech that should have been given at every high school graduation for the last 100 years. Nobody gave it. Most people figure it out too late or never figure it out at all. You know now. Whether you'll do anything with it remains the only question worth asking.